We've been studying Ruth for the past 4 weeks, and each week we get closer to the important part of the story. We have found Ruth to be loyal to both her mother-in-law Naomi and her kinsman Boaz. We've discovered that Boaz wants to be faithful to Ruth, to Naomi, and to tradition. Today we read a story about Boaz, who goes to town and meets the kinsman redeemer, who is a closer relative to Naomi than he is. In front of the town elders, he offers Naomi's field to the next of kin, who wants it, but since Ruth comes with the field in inheritance, the next of kin turns down the offer. Boaz accepts the offer as the next family member in line, so he receives both the field and Ruth as his wife. Boaz and Ruth are married and had a child named Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse, who was the father of David. Matthew's gospel tells us that this line continues to Joseph and Jesus. Imagine where our faith would be without the legacy created by Boaz. This field of Naomi's stays in the family and provides for a future family. Boaz's actions here pay forward the blessing he has received, and so he freely gives. Without this blessing of paying it forward, there would be no Messiah, and there would be no church. We also have the responsibility of paying our faith forward. You'll be hearing today from some of this year's confirmation students and mentors who will share about what they passed on and what they've received from the process. Mentors Connie Carter, Sharon Miller, Mike Bell, and Daniel Vopman answer the question, why did you decide to become a mentor for confirmation?
Well, I had never done it before, and except 2 years ago. And when you asked me to do it again this year, I felt like it was more to be able to grow in my faith and understanding, and to be able to help another young person in their faith and their understanding, not only of the Bible, but of our church and our faith of Methodism.
I had just gotten back from the Emmaus walk, and I don't think I could have said no to anything that would have been asked. And it was a scary thought, but when you texted and asked, I thought, oh dear, I can't say no.
Because you asked me to, and I couldn't think of a good reason to say no.
Jack Davis walked into the nursery and said, we need another confirmation mentor. And I mean, honestly, from a year before, I was asked to be a prayer partner, and I'd said no, and it'd been bothering me, and I realized it was my chance to have a crack at it. I just really needed that for me, too.
Mentors Jeanette Birdie, Kay Albin, Mike Bell, and Daniel Boatman share their answer to the question, what do you think you passed on to your confirmand?
Well, I hope maybe a little bit of history and a little bit of, I learned a lot from the Bible, and I'm afraid she knew more about the Bible than I did. But we had a lot of good experiences together, our trips, and I learned how to play games on the bus, and we had a good time.
I think I passed on patience, love for yourself and others, kindness.
I hope that I helped him grow in his faith a little. I don't know that I did, but I'm hoping I passed on a little something.
I think I passed on a different way to look at the church, to look at the Bible, to look at our faith. A different way to engage, how to learn, and how to make faith life a little more exciting. It's not just an old book. It's not just an old church. It's a living church that is driven by our youth. It's what keeps us all going.
Leah Harbison, Joe Hartkey, and Sydney Harmon answer the question, what do you think you learned in confirmation? In confirmation.
I think I learned that the Holy Spirit is like working in people in different ways, and you just have to figure out like which way you're going to work through it.
I think you learned in confirmation.
Well, I think I learned more about God and more about the Bible by learning and reading more and doing the manual. I also learned a lot about Jeanette here.
Faith. What is it like to be a Christian and learning about God?
Annie List, Victoria McMillan, and Liam Osborne were asked, someday when you're an adult, even if you're not living in Robinson, and your church has a confirmation class, and they ask you to be a mentor, what would you want to pass on? Mentor.
I will try to be a good influence and pass on the good deeds and show them, even if they have gone through tough times and if they haven't been the best that they could be, that they can be forgiven and they can grow in their faith.
Some things I would pass on to just keep reading in your Bible, even after you're being confirmed. Keep reading, keep memorizing. And I really like to pass on my kindness to whoever my confirmand is, and they can go out and share it too.
The creeds.
We asked all of our students and our mentors, how do you think you experienced the Spirit while you were in confirmation? Here are their answers. Confirmation.
Well, I felt like the Spirit was with us, and every time we met here at the church on Sundays, when we went to see Bernice, definitely when we went to see Bernice, the Spirit was there. When we went to the Jewish synagogue, Cunningham home, bagging the oats at Wesleyan Center, you just felt the closeness. You didn't feel like you were not doing something that wasn't necessary. You felt needed.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I don't know.
Confirmation.
For me, I didn't feel it during the confirmation process. I felt it after. And so sometimes when I'll just be sitting in church, I'll feel just this feeling, and it makes me really happy, and sometimes I just want to cry. And that's what I think the Spirit is for me.
I think the Holy Spirit is with me all the time. I mean, I say these little prayers just throughout the day, and I would say prayers for my confirmand at different times, and of course we were supposed to pray for them. And every activity and sitting in church, looking over at her, knowing we were going through this together, my heart was bursting, basically, because you feel like I'm a part of that, and I was very glad to be a part of that. And looking at the other kids, it was just wonderful, the questions they asked and how they were hungry for that, and they were ready for it. And the Holy Spirit does move in so many different ways, but you're more aware. You know, it was a renewal for me too, and that Holy Spirit guiding me with her.
Information.
Well, for one thing, I read the Bible more. Bob was always the Bible scholar. He would lean over and say, page 167 or page 298. But I learned more, and I really enjoyed being with young people. We did some great trips together. We had good bus trips. I learned how to play games on the bus. And I was especially moved when we had at the Wesleyan Center at Champaign-Urbana at the U of I. And we had an evening service, a late evening service, and I thought it was very outstanding.
Yeah, and I also agree with her. We get to learn more and experience more things that we didn't before, I guess.
Confirmation.
By praying to God.
I feel like I experience His Spirit, and it helps me to be able to pray out loud during refresh.
And I feel that the Spirit moved me when she would ask questions and I didn't really know the answer for sure, that the Spirit gave me the words and the confidence to guide her in the way that He wanted me to.
Saying how other churches help a lot of different people.
I don't know if I really did. Sometimes the Spirit may be a little subtle for me.
Seeing the Spirit move through all of the confirmands, just as they learned each week as we went on, each week that we grew closer, and it started reminding me of when I went through confirmation, started reminding me of the commitments that I made, and getting to see young people making those commitments in their lives. It's just a great way to see the Spirit move.
Our students and mentors obviously see the value in passing on their faith to others. Each of our mentors will have left a legacy for those they mentored. Our students will pay that legacy forward to other students someday. Passing on that legacy is part of our role and responsibility as Christians. Our baptismal liturgy says that we will nurture baptized persons in the Christian faith. Because we have received the faith, we must also pass it on to others. Part of hospitality is paying it forward so that others can receive in the future. Just think, if God hadn't moved Ruth to return to Israel with Naomi, if God hadn't brought Ruth to glean in Boaz's field, if God hadn't moved Naomi to match Ruth and Boaz together, if God hadn't moved Boaz and Ruth to redeem each other, the family line would have ended. Thank goodness that they chose to pay forward what they had received to future generations and listen to the movement of the Holy Spirit. We also need to live out that call as we share in hospitality with one another.